Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Biz Dev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I am your host, David Baxter. I'm joined today by a French crawler of a man, Gary Voigt.
That one caught me off guard. Although I do like crawlers. I didn't know there was French versions. I thought crawlers were just crawlers.
No, the best ones are French. I don't know. Is there a different kind? I don't know, but that's what you remind me of.
I'd prefer to be an apple fritter, but that's cool.
Apple fritter. Oh, no, those are too greasy, which might make sense. All right. Yeah, boom, I'm on fire today. What's up? All right. Today we are going to be talking about tech stuff, software development, small business, startups, leadership, and all the ways that those connect. Hopefully we'll keep you entertained as we do so. All right. So we're going to revisit, starting out, we're going to revisit a topic we sort of talked about before, but now we have proof.
Definitive proof.
Definitive proof, meaning Gizmodo.
Well,
the bastion of scientific knowledge.
Well, no, they actually spoke to the people who actually do this stuff. So, yeah, we mentioned before.
What are we talking about?
If the space pictures are faked. In other words, the images that came back from like the James Webb Telescope, and even prior to that, how they're shot in infrared. So the actual image itself is black and white before they kind of layer on the colors for it based on the frequencies and the different frequencies that the light will emit based on what kind of gas they perceive and what the infrared light can detect as different types of light that our eyes can't see, but those are the types of colors we would see if it were here on Earth in our atmosphere that, our eyes would be able to see the color. That's a long-winded, roundabout explanation
That was so boring, I started falling asleep. I appreciate that. Well, so let's back up.
Fake.
So a few weeks ago, the James Webb Telescope started finally showing so let me try that again. Wow, that was bad. The James Webb Telescope started showing some of its amazing images. And I posed the question of how do we know that's what it really looks like? And you came up with some stuff you made up on the fly, and it turned out to be pretty much correct. So I'm very impressed with your BS in there. That was really good. So
no, I kind of knew a little bit about it before.
Clearly, because you actually said the right answer, and my answer would not have been nearly as accurate. Come to find out that there's an article that we'll link in the show notes. They show a picture. One of my favorite things, they actually showed the raw picture of what James Webb took. And it almost looks like a starry sky in a brightly lit city. It's just a big black blob with a few little bright blobs. That's the only thing that visually you can see, which I thought was really cool because I'd never seen that before. And then they're like, but behind this is a bunch of data, like way more data than we can process.
Yeah, like layers and layers and layers of different.
Yeah, of all this different stuff. And there is some art here, and I think that's important to recognize. They say, hey, we're going to make this part orange, and we're going to make this part blue, and we're going to make this part yellow, and then we make this really pretty image. And it's all based on the spectrum of light that's coming in.
Yeah, they're not just picking random colors. They're picking colors that our human eyes associate to that spectrum, that field of view of those frequencies in our vision.
But they did say at the end of the article, and I think this is important, is that there is certainly an artistic license here. Like they were talking about one of the pictures, and they told them to dial back the gas because it hid some of the cooler parts of the image. So there's definitely some artisticness going on here. And I think, and one of the great questions they asked was, you don't ask a biologist, a molecular biologist, is that really what a cell looks like? Because they're putting their artistic license on it too. Same with like chemistry and the oxygens connecting to the carbons and all that. That's not what they really look like.
It's not to the point where they're putting their artistic license on like they're faking a Photoshop composite or a deep fake or anything like that. They're just kind of coming up with a composition that's going to help you understand the components of the image based on what we know as humans things look like. So
yeah. No, and it's cool. It's neat. I'm glad there's a real reason. It's not just throwing a dart on the wall and saying this is what space could look like. Because I've always and it goes back to my thing. If we were suddenly Star Trek and flying through a nebula, would it really look like that? No, it wouldn't. It would not look like Star Trek, and these images make it look like. because if you did visually see it, it would probably be black because it's in the spectrum we can't see. So
if we
space
are Star
is not.
Trek, we could just take the glass that we're looking out of and have that manipulate what we're seeing with the colors that we're used to from pictures.
There we
from
go.
James
In
Webb.
real time.
Yeah.
There you go.
Real time.
Here is something
It'll just
I've
be
always
like
thought
the
was so funny.
metaverse in the universe.
There you go. Someone said when they were talking about the design of spaceships, they said that the most annoying thing is they always put these big holes with these beautiful glass windows.
Yeah.
And they're like, you would never, ever, ever do that in a real spacecraft because that would be such a point of weakness. The real bridge would be buried in the center of that thing, and it would just be a bunch of TV screens. Now, it would be the same.
How they put wings too.
Yeah, they put wings on it. What's weird? Yeah, way off topic here. But Star Wars, right? You have the big Star Destroyers, which is the big triangle guys, right?
Yep.
Suddenly, in the newer movies, those can fly in atmosphere. Like they're in the planet.
Yeah,
You're like, there's no way that sucker is flying in planet. That's fine in Star Wars. They can do whatever they want. Star Wars has no wheels. If you ever notice that, they have no wheels. That is like their thing to say we are different. Not a single vehicle has wheels.
In my mind right now, I'm scrubbing through all the video footage of Star Wars that I've ever seen, and I mean, unless you see the wheels that they just didn't hide in the VFX part,
it's right in the old 70s movies.
Really, nothing. They don't even nothing they push even has wheels. Everything's levitated.
Yeah, the repulsors are everywhere. The only thing that has wheels are the robots, right? I guess that's like R2 has wheels.
That's true. Yeah,
but no vehicle has wheels, and that was one of the things George Lucas wanted to do to make it. This is spacey, and it's real subtle, and it's great. But no vehicles. If repulsors were as easy as they make them in Star Wars, man, it'd be pretty awesome because they can go into like anything, like this big, no problem. We'll put a repulsor in there. It's like Wi-Fi signal or something. It's no problem. It's just this little thing that's infinite energy and it can float forever, right there.
Popular topic, you've heard it before, failing forward, or just learning from your mistakes, basically, and how it affects you professionally. Everybody's going to tell you failing's just learning. So thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about maybe a story that we have from our past that was a failure at the time, but taught you a big enough lesson to where that, you were able to use that moving forward and make sure you never repeated that failure again, but then turned it into something that's going to kind of guide you towards more of a success in that area. And so I have a story from when I started at a large national media company that had an in-house print department, like their own printing press, their own press people. They were running a full color press, like almost 24 hours a day with the products that we were creating. And my first week there, I happened to start right when they were going to host a 40-year anniversary party. And I was tasked to finish the invitations that were going out to all the, I guess you could say, all the VIP people in the area, whether it's CEOs, people that worked for the state, like council members, governors, mayors, stuff like that. And we had to actually create this with a separation between a Pantone and a metallic ink. So on a printing press, usually the one that we had was 4 colors, so it would print cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and then layer those combinations on top of each other to create all the colors you would see in a printed material. So I know it sounds boring for someone who doesn't do print, but so in order to separate colors on a press like that, for 2, you have to run 2 different plates, which just means you have one version that's one single color and one version that's another single color, and when they go on top of each other, that's it. So I was thinking in my mind, okay, well, I'll use the colors that the press uses, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, as the main plates, so they know one is one color, and then I'll just label the plates so they know that anything represented in cyan is going to be burgundy, and anything represented in magenta is going to be the gold. I thought it was brilliant. So I talked to the pressman. He understood. He was like, no problem, we'll print them tonight. Lo and behold, that night, a different pressman showed up to run the job, and he looked at the 2 different plates, read the plate that was magenta, that was supposed to be gold, as burgundy, and the other one, the cyan, or as burgundy, he made gold. So he switched what was gold and what was burgundy on top. Ran the whole job. Come in the next morning, and my boss is like, hey, I thought I asked you to do this part in gold and this part in burgundy. I'm like, I did. What are you talking about? She showed me the invites. I was like, oh my God. Everything was reversed. You get that nervous feeling, the little bit of cold sweat, and you're like, well, how did I mess this up? So I looked at what I sent, looked at the plates, and what I sent was right. But I didn't think, magenta is closer to red. I should have just not used magenta as the, flag color to say that this is going to be the gold plate. I should have used the magenta that was going to be the Pantone burgundy plate. So it wasn't like a huge failure on my part, but it was something that I didn't consider. If I wasn't in front of the guy doing this, you need to really explain kind of and try to take any of the questions out of his mind to make it easier for him. So now, when moving forward, anytime I did any kind of print work, everything was just labeled immaculately. And moving into UI design, I'm starting to notice that the more I label and explain everything from spacing to font sizes and everything, if they're not able to get it from the document and I have to write an explanation for it, it's way easier for them and it goes way faster for the developers. So I'm trying to get into the habit now of using that past failure as like, okay, it might take me longer, but I'm going to label everything that I possibly can that they might have a question on. That way they don't waste time coming back and forth, trying to figure out what I'm trying to interpret to them that I already know in my head is going to look fine, but they don't know how to build it if they're missing just that one little piece of information.
Were you done?
You sound completely entertained by that story.
What was what I lost you? You lost me at magenta. I get it. And hopefully someone. No, it's great. You're great.
We dove into the little bit of the design instead of the business thing on that end. Which the point being, first day, failed, freaked out, turned it into something positive.
You got to learn these things, and it's better to learn them early. I think my closest one, I was actually just telling this story. I got burned. Gosh, this was a long time ago, 15 years ago. My story is going to be just as boring, but I'll try to condense it more than you did. I got burned because this client swore up and down that they did X in the software that we had built. And I had no proof that they had, in fact, not done that. And from that moment on, I became an absolute beast at logging everything that my software does into a logging software because I wasn't going to have that happen again. I log everything to an obscene amount so that, and it's always traceable back to the person using the software that I built. So that and this has happened since then, hey, I didn't do that. And I'm like, yeah, you did. Here's the proof.
Okay, so I don't get talking about the client doing something.
It's the end user. It's like the end user. They said that they didn't click that button. That's the most common. I didn't delete that. I never deleted that. What are you talking about? Your software is broken. That's generally what happens. Your software is trash because you deleted all my stuff. Here's where you click that button, sir. And I send that to my client, right? Which is generally not the end user, of course. Yeah. So that because we don't interface with the end user because that's not our role. And then they can take that up and talk to them. But that was a lesson that I learned is that you gotta in development, you gotta protect yourself because what we're doing is zeros and ones. It's just it's ethereal or ephemeral. Use one of my wife's words there. It's ephemeral because it's just come and gone, right? And so if you don't log it, now it's your word versus his, and you never want to get into that situation with a client or an end user or anybody where it's your word versus them. You got to prove whenever possible. Sometimes it's not possible.
Yeah,
but that was my.
And it's
lesson.
Usually you don't want to shove it in their face like, "Aha."
Well, I'll shove it totally into my client's face.
This is here.
So the end user does. End user is not the one I'm talking about. I'm like, dude, boom, here's the proof. Suck it, right? That's me. That works real well, by the way. I highly recommend saying "suck it" to your clients. They really appreciate that.
Hey, maybe they're a fan of the show Psych and they'll just laugh along because
I've never seen that show.
It was an ongoing joke in that show. It's a great show.
I am currently married to Suits. I am digging that show. It is so good.
You just want Mike's brain.
Oh my gosh. I've heard that kind of memory is not actually realistic. Like no one on the planet really has a true, like you could say, oh, what was on the 47th page of the law book on the second paragraph. No one can actually do that. That is purely Hollywood myth. I've never met anyone, so I can't say one way or the other. I did know a guy who had, who could sing a song and he had it down. He went to Juilliard and was masterful. Now he's not in music anymore. He's hugely successful in a totally different area. But that guy drove us nuts because he was a class clown. But all he had to do was sing the song once, and he had it. The rest of us were trying to learn it, and he was
him singing.
He was just being a jerk the rest of the time.
Now I've heard rumors, and I've actually heard Questlove say it. Black Thought, Tariq Trotter, the lead singer for The Roots, they're on the Jimmy Fallon show as the house band. But he's an amazing MC, one of the best lyricists ever. But he has that gift too, where if he raps along with a song that's not his, but he like mimics, the verse or whatever, then he knows it, and he could repeat it forever. That's insane.
I saw an interview with Charlie Puth, and he has perfect pitch. And a lot of people say they have perfect pitch, but like Jimmy Fallon, I think it was Jimmy Fallon. It was one of the guys, I don't know. He would ding a glass. And he would sing it and say, oh, that's an A. And then if you ding 2 glasses, it'll be this and this with this much water. I mean, he was going into exactly. And then they played on the piano and he nailed it. It was so cool.
Wow.
I've never seen it in action. He's like, he was like tap on a desk. Oh, that's a B flat. Like what in the world? You don't think about those things having pitch, but everything has pitch, right? You speak in a pitch, but you never think about it that way because you're not singing, you're speaking. But they all have pitch. Like if you drop something on the ground, it has pitch. And he can name it. And that is wild.
That's incredible.
But I've never heard of, I think the official term for photographic memory is eidetic memory.
Is it eidetic or eidemic? Eidemic?
I think eidetic is. There is a different
Sheldon
kind.
From Big Bang Theory had.
There is another kind of memory that is you remember everything that you personally did. Like you can replay your own life in your head.
Is that verbatim. Like the people that can remember the weather on a specific day?
Yeah, the weather, what they said, like a verbatim conversation between two people.
Yeah.
That would be that's. I have a good memory, but nothing like that. Nothing crazy like that. But I do love Suits, and you should all watch it. So I think what did you want to end with when it comes to the failing forward? How do you encourage someone to not get overwhelmed when they do fail? Like, what is a good step to, I mean, it's clearly, if I fail, you shouldn't do the same thing again. Okay. But how do you turn that into a life lesson, right? That's the question.
Yeah. I think it's just literally kind of sucking it up and not being afraid of it, because chances are you're going to fail again. Maybe not the same thing, but you're going to fail and you're going to keep failing. And then you're going to learn from it, whether you like it or not. I mean, as long as you can not be afraid of that part of like, what if this is wrong, making you not even try. You know what I mean? Some people get that in their head where it's like, well, last time I was put on a big project like this and didn't know 100% of what I was doing, I failed miserably. But then maybe you could look back and say, hey, you didn't really fail that miserably. You just kind of messed up and learned from it. And then now you know so much more about it that you gain experience from it. So it's like all the cliches and all the things you can see on social media about like failing forward and failure is just learning in disguise and all that stuff. But I think the key to it is making sure it doesn't just turn that little I'm afraid of this forever switch in your brain. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It doesn't become a fear.
I think when I think about failure, and now this sounds a bit pie in the sky, but the best way I think you can handle it is to go after the fact. Obviously, in the middle of it, you just got to get through it. But take a moment after the fact and think why you failed. And really ask yourself that question. I don't think enough people ask themselves that question. Why did I fail? Oh, it's because in your case, I didn't I told a boring story. No, the reason I failed was
this is why I'm co-host.
But you realized, okay, I need to have been more upfront with someone because you never know someone's going to switch out or whatever, right? And you recognize that. Why did I fail? If you ask yourself that question, then you're going to learn how to improve next time. If you just keep wandering around, you're going to keep hitting the same wall. And that's where I think that's where you've got to really take, if you're someone who's aiming to improve yourself, and I'll tell you that, talk about separating into two groups of people who want to succeed and want to do what it takes to succeed, and those people who are just stumbling around, right? That's probably the 80-20 rule. There may be 20%, if you're being very generous, of people who truly want to succeed and will do what it takes to get there, meaning learn from their mistakes, take those steps, those uncomfortable steps of self-reflection. Why did I fail at this? What can I do better next time? Because that project's coming down the pipe. You want that big project, right? You want them to give you a big project, something that gives you more responsibility so that you can succeed the next time. Well, okay, so this is what I did wrong last time. So this time I'm going to be much more thorough about that. If you can take those little steps and keep a little cheesy journal or something, I'm not saying journal, but notes, something, it will help you improve. Just writing it down, that's the weird thing about, I'm not a journaler. I shouldn't say this with any authority, but what I have found is when I do write in my little notebook, my little notes or something, if I'm in a client meeting, right? You know, my little notebook I talk about all the time. When I write that stuff down, as opposed to, I might remember it, but you don't have to write it all down, but it's little sparks of memory.
Yeah, little triggers.
And it makes such an impact.
That's true.
Anyway.
And it doesn't even have to be on a related topic. You know what I mean? Like even if, like you were saying, you know why you failed at this in a project, but the next project you have might have a similar situation. It could be totally different things, because sometimes people, if they fail at something, will be like, well, I'm not doing that again. And then they'll switch and avoid that thing for a while. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or, I'm no good at that. Like something as simple as drawing. If someone's drawing a picture and then someone else draws something better than them, they'll be like, oh, well, no, I stink at drawing. Obviously, I'm not talented. I wasn't born with that, so I'll stop drawing altogether. That's True. Kind of the failure that you're not learning from, because drawings, I mean, granted, there are people that are very talented, but it's also a learned skill. Like as long as you don't stop, you get better.
It's funny. So, I've always considered drawing, singing, certain things, like those kinds of things, running fast, whatever, playing a sport. There is a level of talent that you are given upon your creation. Some people are a lot, some people are a little. And then the learn goes on top of that.
Yeah.
But no matter how much you practice, you're never going to be Michael Jordan, right? Because he took an insane amount of talent, then put an insane amount of work on top of it, and you end up the best ever to play the game, right? Like I always watch those kids doodle in 5th grade or 6th grade, and they're on the corner of the notebook, and I'm drawing little curly cues because this is all my little chunky hand will do. And then, the kid's drawing this perfect cat or this cartoon in the notebook. You're like, that's just talent, dude. This kid didn't learn that. He was born with that.
The kid probably also has a how to draw cats book at home that he's been practicing all summer that you didn't know
That's
about.
true. You never know, right? He might have that book. But there is something about talent. And I'm not really saying anything profound about that. I think most things can be learned. But I do think, like, if you're a singer, Mariah Carey, as much as she has trained over her life, she was born with that instrument. I mean, that's
like Adele.
Her 5 octaves didn't come
Adele.
by practice.
But people can sing extremely well that practice.
True.
So, yeah.
That's very true. Very true.
And to close it out, you brought up something about the sonic waves earlier, about someone remembering sounds based on their perfect pitch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That made me think of the show that we actually just finished this weekend. Have you watched Umbrella Academy on Netflix?
I saw the first season, and I ended it, and the second season came out, and I was like, I haven't gotten back around to it. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like, whoa.
I won't spoil it for you, but if you finish the first season, then you know that one of the powers one of the children in the Umbrella Academy has is the way to manipulate energy through sound waves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that made me think of it. But there's 3 seasons, and I guess you could say this is one of those new comic book style series where the comic is not like superhero generated. It's more a little bit more abstract and obscure, but it's also extremely creative. And this show gets weird but good at the same time. So if you do start watching it again, it takes a little to manipulate through the weird stories because there's timelines that intersperse and stuff like that and personalities that change, but it's very interesting as it goes. And the other thing that's impressive is the creator of it is Gerard Way, who was the lead singer to the punk emo group My Chemical Romance. So
only you know that. I mean,
he grew up working in a comic book store with his brother. They started a band, and then after the band toured and became, successful worldwide, he ended up writing his own comic book that then got turned into a series for Netflix. It's just kind of crazy story. But very creative.
You're such
a dude's
dork.
Talented.
Have we talked about The Boys?
Join the Black Parade. No. Did we what?
I don't know that. Have we talked about
The
Boys?
You don't know that, but a couple other people. Have we? That show's insane.
That show, you talk about bonkers. I mean, that is so not for children. Like the most not for kids show I have ever seen. I mean, it makes Game of Thrones look like a kindergarten special. It's
also done so comedically that it's not as offensive as you would think, just because it's random and funny.
It is random, funny, and they pulled no punches against anybody. Like there's
true. That is true.
There's no sacred cows in that, and so
they would actually make fun of
everybody.
Sacred cows. Yeah,
they make fun of everybody. It's kind of like South Park, but horribly gory. And I've appreciated because it just turns the whole superhero thing completely on its head. The superheroes in that show are not good guys, and it is refreshing is not the right word because there's nothing refreshing about that show because you kind of have to gird your loins and kind of peek when you're watching because it's going to be something so outrageous that it's going to offend your sensibilities. But it's interesting how they
take on the superhero persona, and it's also
for sure.
It makes sense as well. It's not like no, that would never happen. Like it's almost like I could see that happening.
They definitely took. I always appreciate shows that create their own rules, and then you stick to them. That's the key to any good fantasy, whether it's Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. You have to create rules, and then stick by them. Superman can do X, Y, and Z, and he's weak against that. Okay, cool. That's it. You can't change the rules that suddenly he can create flowers out of his face, right? That doesn't work. That's not how it works. And once you break that, everybody's like, you just jumped the shark, man. You're done. This is no longer fun. Because I don't know the right word for it. I can't believe you anymore, even though you've been lying to me from the beginning because it's all fantasy. But
at least
you've lied to me in a very specific way. Yeah. And I think The Boys does that very well, even though it is brutal. Anyway, I think I'm good, man. I think we're good. I think the audience is good. I believe we've enlightened. We've entertained. We've done it all. We've checked all the boxes.
Obviously,
you just bored the crud out of all of us, man.
I should take some classes on speaking, or at least trying to be entertaining.
You speak fine. You just need to decide what you're going to speak.
Storytelling, maybe?
Storytelling, that might help.
Maybe I should think about what I'm going to say before I actually just start going rabbit.
That would be really smart if I did that. I am horribly bad at that. I get in a lot of trouble. Just ask my wife. But it can lead to some good podcast episodes.
Speaking of podcasts, you were on someone else's podcast.
I was on a podcast.
Did you want to mention
I was on let's see. Because if you go and look it up, you won't find it. Because it's not been published. I was on a live stream of a guy's podcast called the One Big Tip Podcast. Jeff Mendelson, if you want to go look that up. You won't find my episode up there because it will be published later on. We do a live thing at first so it gets out there. And then he polishes it up, turns it into a blog article, and that goes out in like October or something like that. But it was fun. It was fun. That's the first time I'd been on someone's show before. It was weird.
Hopefully we could do that a bit more in the future. But
yeah, I'd love to bring people on, and I'd love to go on other people's show. Not that people really want to hear my dulcet tones, but it was fun. It was good. All righty, y'all. Thank you so much. Hey, if someone had a question, Gary, what would they do?
They could email us at hello@thebigpixel.net, or they can go to any of our social media channels or YouTube page, leave a comment, post a question, whatever you want.
There you go. All righty. We're everywhere now. It's weird seeing my big fat head on. Now, it's not fair because it's my accounts, right?
I still don't know why you set up a Tinder account for us, though. That's weird.
Well, swipe right for Big Pixel, baby. Woo!
If you want UI, swipe right. UX, swipe left.
Oh, that's so wrong. Okay. I got nothing. I'm speechless. I totally.
You can find us out there. Just search the Big Pixel.
Not Tinder though. You can't find us on Tinder. Have a good one, everybody.
See you next week.